DataMiner Kata. Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Bringing the Thunder. My name is Jan and I am your host once again, but I have a new guest with me. I have with me David. Am I saying it right?
Yes.
David?
Correct, David.
Let's go with David. So, David, tell me a little. What are we going to be looking at today? What are you doing and who are you and what do you do in Skyline?
So my name is David. I'm a solution DevOps engineer,
Okay.
which basically means I'm building solutions and demos for customers with all the tools that we have within DataMiner. So especially with DOM, as we're going to see here, low-code apps, SRM, might be anything, but focusing a solution to solve a specific problem within a specific domain.
To be able to give like some pre-packaged modules that come together, work together to, you know, try and do something. And you've got one of those prepared today to have a look at. And I can see it on the screen. It says DataMiner Object Models, DOM. That was going to be my first question because I've heard of DOM, D-O-M. A lot of my colleagues, a good friend of mine as well, is also using it a lot. And I always have a bit of trouble following along. So I'm not that aware of the entire topic. My first question was going to be, what does DOM stand for? But DataMiner Object Models.
But maybe we can start first with why do we need it?
Yes, what is it? Why do we need it?
Yeah. So basically, DataMiner, you often have data that you want to work with, like we've seen in the previous katas, like data that comes from a specific device and that you want to expose, build a dashboard around. But you also have a lot of other data, which is more like, you can call it business data, administrative data, that you want to add on top of that. So to build applications that can do a lot more than just visualize data that is coming from those devices. So examples are, for example, a contract, a contact person, an organization, a channel. So anything that exists in the real world, but that DataMiner doesn't really talk to or doesn't have a connector for, but you want to model in order to create a solution.
So a bit more in it like metadata that's not 100% connected to a connector or to a device or a service. It's more, you know, who's the author, who is the, what's the date of something or things like that. So that kind of storage and memory is happening then through DOM?
Correct.
Or that's the intention?
Yeah, so it's actually, so we touched on the why, but how do we do it? It's actually a generic data store. So it's an indexing database. So it can be installed on-prem, or it could be in the cloud with the SaaS, for example. So it's based on either Elastic or OpenSearch.
So it's based on Elastic or OpenSearch as the third-party components. And then built on that, you've created the DataMiner Object Model.
Yes.
Great, okay. Easy enough. Thank you everyone for watching. No. I'm guessing you've got a little something prepared as well to take a look at.
Yeah, correct. Well, just want to explain some of the concept, very small part of theory, and then we'll dive in immediately.
No, not theory. No, it's fine, it's fine. Let's do something to build up to... Okay.
So the thing we're going to create is an event management app. So suppose you want to manage sporting events in an app because you're going to want to book resources or monitor devices during that event. So you want to capture that instead of having an Excel on the side. You really want to model that in the application, be able to create events, start events, see what is on the schedule and so on. Yeah. So that's what we're going to start from.
Great. Okay. So something on DataMiner itself instead of just an Excel or a piece of paper where you've written something down.
What typically happens with a lot of customers, they have tons of Excels managing all of that, and then when the event starts, they need to configure all of it. So that's a bit the purpose.
Trying to automate that part as well.
Yeah.
Great.
So an event, so I just would define that very simple, what I want to store, an event name, a start, an end of that event, and maybe some notes that I want to capture on the event. Yeah. Just to start from. The great thing about DOM is also you can start really basic, create an app for it, and then expand your data model as you go. You don't need to define everything up front.
All right.
So here what I want to explain is what we call a definition, so a DOM definition versus a DOM instance. You can compare it a bit like tables and rows. So a definition is the table. So there we define what we're going to actually store on that object. And then we'll have specific instances.
Yeah.
So here, for example, we'll have 3 events, each with their own data. Like we have a Barcelona versus Real game starting 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. with some nodes. And now we have some other events.
Where's my kata? I don't see my kata in there as the
would
event.
Would have been a better example.
It would have been. No, it's good. I mean, who wants Barcelona versus Real when you've got DataMiner katas?
I agree.
All right, so we've got some example events there, and you've kind of inherited from the base event there, kind of in this picture at least.
Yeah. So it's actually we create specific events based on that definition. That's where we always need to start from, a definition. And then another small part that's important to understand. So you have definitions, but you cannot create an application with just a single definition. But maybe you want to also store in that same application or other applications a contact for that event, an organization that is hosting that event, for example. So you want to capture that data as well. So you would define additional definitions to store that metadata and then combine it in what we call a module. So a module is just a logical grouping of definitions that belong together in a certain business context.
Okay. And that's kind of creating a hierarchy of where you want to store what kind of data.
Correct, yeah.
And then eventually, I'm going to guess there's like an API or something to be used to create this in practice.
Yeah. So there's different ways actually how you can model them. There's you can actually start from an Excel sheet where you define the basic structure, upload that into DataMiner.
Something known and maybe in the fingers of a lot of the users already. Yeah. They can do it with an Excel and then import it.
Yes.
Okay.
And then it would create a model, and then you can also import the actual instances, so the DOM instances. That's one way. Another way, which is what I'm going to show today, is use a tool which we call the DOM editor. So that's basically
more
UI tool in Cube, where you can actually create that model with just a few clicks, and then start from there. And then I'm going to show, once you've created that model, how you integrate that into a low-code app.
Sounds great. Can't wait. Should we have a look and actually do one? Let's see what happens. So this is an exercise. I'm guessing it will have a prerequisite as well.
Yeah. So we're going to need the DOM editor to actually create that, and you can get it from the catalog.
The catalog. So most should already be aware of that. But going to the catalog.dataminer.services, we can look for DOM editor. DOM editor,
and then you deploy it. So I've deployed it already to my instance, but it's basically click it and deploy.
Yep.
Once you've done that, you go to Cube, and in Cube you go to Apps, Automation, and then you should have something which is called a folder which is called DOM, and in there you should find a script which is called DOM editor.
Okay. So is this a prerequisite for the exercise, or is this a prerequisite? No. This is the actual editor.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. So this is the actual editor where you would define all DOM definitions, modules, and so on.
All right.
So let's start that one.
So, and you mentioned this is linked to Elastic in the background, or
OpenSearch.
OpenSearch. So not using Cassandra or no. So you're gonna need to make sure you do have the license and Elastic installed.
Correct.
Or that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So either you can use stars, or you have an on-prem Elastic database.
Okay. So for the people who are wanting to do this exercise, but they might not have Elastic on their production or staging yet.
Yeah.
You could, or they could spin up a stars.
Yeah.
Or a DAS actually, a DataMiner as a service.
Yes. Then you have it out of the box.
And you have it out of the box. Okay, so if you're watching and you still want to follow along, but you might not have the right staging or prerequisites for it, feel free to spin up a DAS and we can have a look then.
Yeah.
Please, continue.
All right. So we'll start first with, of course, creating the highest level, which is the module. So here, let's say we call it Event Management.
Indeed, that was our theory.
Indeed. create that one. So we have now a module. So basically here you would see all the modules already. If you have something already defined in the system, this is also a DAS. So I started from scratch, no modules available. And then I go into that module, and then you see different options here. So we've seen already what are definitions. An additional thing we have is section definitions, and a section is actually a part of a definition. So it's a grouping of fields. So you have like a general section, resource section. So it's actually a subdivision within a definition.
Okay, so it's a step lower than a definition, not higher.
Yeah.
So you've got module, you've got definition, and then you've got these sections in there with section definitions.
And in there you have fields.
All right, and then the last is fields. Okay, good.
So, but we're going to start with creating a definition. So here, for example, I'm going to create the definition which I have shown, the event. And then I say OK. And then we already have
one definition
level, no fields inside yet, just empty event. Now, in order to continue, you need to go back and go to section definition, because section definitions, it's a bit special. You can use that across different definitions, but this is already a bit more advanced theory.
Yeah, but it's kind of like making a reusable, like a template or something that's... Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, I think I can follow.
So going to the section definition, let's say, we're going to say our section is called event info. Then we have, and then the step below that is we need to create the fields. Yeah, correct.
So one of them was the name and so on and so
forth. So we're going to start with that. We say new, and then we create an event name, for example. You see other options here, like is it an optional field, read only? I'm not going to go in detail yet, but it shows you, it allows a lot of detailed configuration of how you're going to expose it, that data,
user,
and what also are the rights of the user to actually update those specific fields.
All right.
You can also add tooltips, which is very interesting because in low-code apps you can create forms, and in those forms it will clearly mention then this field, this is actually the meaning of that
Okay, so
field.
this is already thinking ahead on if you're going to display this on a low-code app, which is probably the intention of most of those metadata things. You can already say, okay, here's a tooltip as well to display that.
I'm going to add a very interesting tooltip now saying it's the name of the event.
very generic.
And then, but you can also use that as a sort of documentation of your model as well, so it can help in that way. Then, very importantly, that's the type. So the type defines the type of field that is, and it's also determines how it's going to be displayed on a low-code app. So in this case, just a string, but as you can see, there's tons of different types which are supported out of the box.
So a lot of the display settings are also already handled in here, so it's not. And is there a way, like in dashboards or low-code apps, then to change that?
Not really. So basically how it's shown today is based on the data model, it will generate a generic form. There is in the future there will be plans that you can then model how that form looks, but now it's like it will create the sections, the fields.
Currently it's going to be a single form which contains what you decided here or defined here, but it could be maybe that it could be individual stuff that you can then put in the dashboard.
But what you can change is how it's visualized in tables. So the form is like standard, but tables you can actually decide which fields you show and hide, and then you can color them, you can give them icons. So that's I think there was already a session probably on table templates or not yet.
Yeah, maybe. I've had a few of them. I think we had some stuff with low-code app for sure, and dashboards and all of that, so it might have been in there already, yes.
So let's continue. So I have the event name, so then I'll create a start of the event, and then of course I will choose a date time. Same thing for the end of the event. And then a notes field. Which is just a string. So now I already have all my fields. You see it goes pretty fast.
Pretty quick indeed.
One important thing, always hit the apply button.
Okay,
Just very important.
just always to make sure that you've saved what you've
so
done.
that's committing it really to Elastic or OpenSearch, creating that specific model. So now we're back here. So we created a section which is event info. And now we just need to tie it up to the definition. So we need to say, okay, the definition here of the event. And now we say section definition links, add, and it automatically populates with the section that it finds. If you have other sections defined, you will see it down the list here.
Okay. And do you always need a section definition?
Yes.
So you cannot just in a definition say, I just need some standard stuff.
No.
Okay. So you you really build it up from the smallest blocks up. Okay.
Correct.
Good.
So basically now we're done. So we have our model defined. So we're actually ready now to start adding data events to our database. And there's, as I said, there's different ways. So now we're going to do it through a low-code app. But of course you can do it via scripting as well. So there's a whole library which we call DOM Manager that exposes everything you can do with DOM. Create, update, delete, so everything.
That library is like a public nugget that's available. Okay, so just with the nugget manager in Visual Studio or whatever, you can
I think it's already part of the automation nugget automatically.
Even there. Okay, yes. Good.
All right.
Okay. So pretty much, we used I'm guessing this was an interactive automation script, right?
Yeah,
okay,
correct.
We've had an episode on that as well, so it's actually fun to see it actually used to then build upon with creation of the DOM editor then.
Yeah.
So and next part I'm guessing is either going to be visualizing it, I'm guessing.
Yeah, correct.
Low-code app and then inputting the data.
Yes. So I already created an app, but just with nothing in it. We've seen that in the other katas, so that's very easy. Create app, and you're...
If you don't know how to do that, look back to previous kata. But we've made a few low-code apps before, so we've got a blank one here.
Yes.
Which we'll want to edit.
We go in edit mode, indeed. So then we say, okay, so we have one page. I called it events.
Okay,
and we're going to edit mode. So once you start using DOM, you have here on the right side these two options here, Object Manager Definitions and Instances, which should ring a bell.
It does, because we just went through those items, so indeed.
So if I open definitions, what I will see is the modules that I've created in the system, and below the modules you will see the definitions. So I have one definition, which is called event, and I just go from here and drop it onto my page, and I need to pick a visualization. So what visualization would I pick in this case? Have a guess?
Well, what are the options there? I'm gonna guess it's just a string. It's the form with the DOM in it.
Indeed, correct. So here the first option I have is form. So this is what I mentioned. So now
it's the full form that we defined earlier. Okay.
You don't. If you have a very big data model, you will have your full form in one go without any development work. So that's useful. So we can have the form, so we can start entering data. So what do we need to do next to be able to enter data? So here we can just, if we publish that, start entering information, but we need to save that specific form. So we need the save button. So for that we go to the header bar, and now we say create a new save button. We can also give it a save icon. Like this.
Sure.
And then we need to say, okay, what do we want to do when we click the save button? We execute a component action and we save the current changes. Which changes of my form that I have on my page?
Okay, so a component action and then save current changes on the form 1, and form 1 is the DOM definition that we created earlier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. So now we have this, so let's already publish that.
Yeah.
So now you see we have a simple form, and we can, for example, say we have an event which is a kata on DOM, for example. We can, you see we have some date pickers because we choose that specific data type. So for example, it's today from 10 to 11.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I'm getting the picture. So you've got this editor now that allows you to input data using the definitions you just defined, and what happens in the background is in the background. So it's going to save things, it's going to make sure it's stored, and then you can probably retrieve those particular things.
So that's the next step I want to show. So now we're going to save that. But we have no way now to see what is in our database.
Yeah, because if you just open this again, it'll be blank.
Yeah,
and this is literally just an editor to push in data.
Yeah, correct.
You want to visualize that, and I'm guessing that's where things like tables and stuff come in.
Yeah.
Which you mentioned you could then adjust your layout as you want. Great, okay.
So that's the next step. So we're going to go into edit mode again, and then to queries. So there was a whole sessions on GQI.
Yes, indeed, GQI and queries.
So that's what we're going to use actually to retrieve our data.
Okay, so we're leveraging the GQI framework, as it were, to then grab that data. Okay.
So I'm going to give that query a specific name, and then to look for DOM data, I'm going to say get object manager instances. So that's really the DOM instances that we
get object manager instances.
Yes.
Okay.
Next, we need to also pick our module. So same thing, and within the module, we need to pick the definition that we're going. Okay. So you're actually guided
through it, yeah, with a kind of wizard as you go.
Yes. And then you say, so this is already fine, but then I can also go into select and say, okay, I need these fields.
Yeah, which of the fields do you want to visualize?
And as you can see, it has the event name start and the nodes field. But out of the box, you already get some other fields as well, which is, of course, it has a unique ID, a GUID of an instance. And it has created and updated dates that you can already see who and when that instance was created or who changed that instance.
Default information that gets set when something happens, yeah.
So you don't need to manage that, and you can use that then later on in your tables or view to see who has been updating that.
Okay.
Okay, so we've created that, and same thing here. We're going to drag and drop that on the page. And we need to pick a visualization again. In this case, let's say a table. And there we have our first record. So I'm going to publish that.
And then we'll probably see, I'm guessing, as soon as we add things, it will show up.
Yep. So you can see here we have the Kata DOM. Let's do the Barcelona one.
Still not doing the kata. He is very fixed
on
the Barcelona. Yeah, okay, okay.
Let's do another kata then.
True.
Kata on GQI. Alright, so let's pick whatever. Done.
No one is watching the Barcelona. No one.
So now we see we saved it, but it's not yet showing up on the right side. And that's because we need to fetch that data again.
Right, because a low-code app is something that shows like more of a snapshot, so you always need to retrieve.
Yeah, so if I refresh the page, you now see I have my second event. So how can we do that automatic loading? So we can actually go back to our page, hit the save button, and on events we're going to say, I'm saving this. After I saved it, let's actually
refresh that page.
So we say fetch the data from a table.
Yes, I remember Siba once showed us that as well as an option there. Okay.
And then when I do that, so let's publish it again.
And now it probably show up, yeah. Yeah, okay.
And then, you see we can expand on this. Now we can also add a new button where we create a new instance so that we clear the form. But typically how we would manage that is we would have a side panel popping up with that form, edit the form, save and close. But here we kept it just simple for
simple, just as an introduction.
Yeah.
And just one more question. If I want to get rid of data, how would I do that?
Same thing, you can actually add a delete button here.
Okay.
So when you select something in the row, you would add the delete button and
a component action again?
Yes.
Specifically to remove then the object definition. Okay.
So that's what we've seen in the actions here. If you go to events, you have fetch the data, but you also have cancel current changes, create new instance.
Okay.
And here, let's see, on the form, should have...
You can see you've got on the table clear selection fetching, select an item.
Yeah, there should be a delete option here.
Maybe something to take a look at.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, we can
Good.
go beyond this. There's plenty more to explain about DOM, but this should give you a first view on how to work with it. You're not limited actually. So now I've shown a very simple model with some text and date times, but you can actually use anything you have in DataMiner. So you can use elements, you can link resources, all within DOM. So if you have, for example, an event and you want to tie that to a specific view in DataMiner, or you want to book a certain resource,
you can do
there's
that.
fields for that. So
Specific types of fields then to link it.
That's the whole list.
Drop down of the types.
Yeah.
Cool, great. So what do you think people should screenshot? So if they're following along and they want to get some of those DevOps points to then use in the shop to get beautiful shirts like this, what do you think they should screenshot?
I think they can do exactly this example, but it would be nice if they think about their own metadata that they would want to store in the system and just create a simple
something simple like this. If they take a screenshot of if you take a screenshot of a low-code app that uses the GQI queries, it leverages it to be able to grab the DOM information from a definition that you created, the entire thing we just did. So if you take a screenshot of that, send it in, then we'll make sure you get your points for that. Was there anything else you really wanted to show us still? Or that was pretty much the initial...
Yes, that was...
It's a good kickoff. I actually learned a lot. I had no idea how to get started. Now I do. So thank you very much for that. And thanks for making some time as well.
You're welcome.
And for everyone watching, they're waving at me again. If you're watching from YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And yeah, other than that, wishing you all the best, and I'll catch you later.